Welcome. Thank you for being here, whether you are attending live or watching this presentation on demand. This topic is a sensitive one. No way around it. That's why so few people actually talk about trust in the workplace, because whenever there's a gap in trust, it always represents some sort of schism, some sort of divide that's really, really uncomfortable. As a coach, I work with teams, I work with individuals who may or may not recognize that at the heart of the divide is a gap in trust, a breach, sometimes a long ago piece of baggage that's been forgotten about. We don't know why we don't trust each other. We just don't. And so that makes it difficult to diagnose it, to treat the problem, and to get back to a place where there can be something that is more like a collaboration, more like a unification of a team. So, knowing all of that, I want to say right here at the front end that what I'm going to offer you isn't like a magic bullet. I don't have any super simple, fast solution. What I have are best practices that over time, with recognition of the problem, with acknowledgement that, hey, part of that problem might be our or even my fault to begin with. So I've got to do the work. I've got to put in the due diligence to make it better. Right? Knowing all of that, I have to acknowledge right here at this front end that what I'm going to be suggesting will not work in every single situation with every single person. But I can also say that what I will be suggesting to you works more often than not, and certainly will work more often than doing nothing at all. I'm going to be talking in the context of what you can do in the workplace. Certainly there would likely be some crossover into the personal, but I'm going to be focusing on what works at work, what works in professional settings, and what's absolutely necessary for thriving teams that are going to be able to do a great job professionally working together. So, this very interesting, heady topic, the one that's so sensitive, is all about repairing those relationships when trust has in any way, shape, or form been breached and it needs to be restored. For those of you who are new here to Bright Talk, let me give you just a couple of pieces of important information. First of all, whether you're listening live or on demand, so many more people come in on demand that I always like to be sure and acknowledge that. However you're coming into the presentation, please note underneath the video that there are attachments for you to access. So those attachments, those are bonus materials, some next steps that you can take. Here at the beginning, please notice that there is always within my presentations a copy, a PDF of the slides that will be presented. I know a lot of folks like to take those and print those beforehand to take notes. Some like to take them afterwards. It's a PDF because please note that these are slides that are copyrighted to People First Productivity Solutions. They are not meant to be shared in some separate presentation that you conduct on your own. Instead, send people here. Get this link. This on-demand presentation will exist in perpetuity, and you can certainly refer others to this exact same presentation. Not only that, but there's a link to other places where you can get similar content, whether it's right here on Bright Talk, where there are companion pieces that you can go back to, both past and future. There's also a link to People First Leadership Academy. That's where we're doing presentations that are more suited to highly interactive kinds of workshops. And there are some that are coming up that you can access, like Trust is a Two-Way Street. Doesn't have a lot of overlap, but it does have within those attachments, within those links, bonus content that you can go and access. A lot of it's free, and there are some options that are paid. Let's see. I should tell you that there's a bonus presentation, a recently added presentation here on Bright Talk. We normally do one per month, and we've got those booked all the way through 2023, by the way. But there is one we've just added because it's been something that coaching clients and clients have been asking a lot about. So if you would like to, if it's at all related for the work you do, please do sign up for the September 28th presentation here on Bright Talk, recently added. It's called 5 Fast Fixes for Employee Burnout, and it's really timely right now. Okay, so I'm Deb. Nice to meet you. The other things that you'll see in the attachments are ways to connect with my companies and with me. I hope that we can connect on LinkedIn. I invite you at any time to ping me over there on LinkedIn, and a link to People First, the Leadership Academy, to the company website, to the newsletter. It's all right there. All right, enough of the commercial setup stuff. I know we've got a lot to dive into. Please do, if you're here live, overrepresent yourself. Put questions in the question box, because the people who come in later on demand don't have an opportunity to ask those questions and get live time answers. So if you've got the question, live attendees, anticipate that people in the future might have the same question, and you'll be helping them to get those questions answered. We are going to be talking about what to do if trust has been breached. And this is both if you have accidentally breached someone's trust, you're the one who's not being trusted and would like to be. It's also what to do when somebody else has breached your trust. And it's hard. I know. I experienced this too. It's hard to take the steps that you can take when somebody else has done the work that damaged the relationship, and you figure it ought to be their responsibility. But if you'd like to accelerate this, if you'd like to get to a place where the team and the workplace relationship is higher functioning, then there are some things you can and should do to make that happen. The first of those, the first thing that you can do, is to reset the emotional tone. Now, remember, I'm talking about whether it's you or whether it's them. You can reset the emotional tone. And by doing that, resetting the emotional tone, you're going to diffuse some of the emotionality. So the tone, you're actually shifting it from one that's very laden with emotions, very sensitive because of that, very tentative, very guarded because of all the emotions. You're looking to reset it to a tone that is more professional than personal, one that is more matter of fact than personal, one that is more objective than subjective. And this is all about being able to become some way more united than divided. Okay, so to make this happen, keep in mind, if the other person has offended you, that it probably wasn't personal. Their offense was one that was protective, misinformed, based on some sort of misunderstanding. They were misguided in some way. All of those things are more likely than they were out to get you. Yes, they may have damaged you, your professional esteem. They certainly may have damaged your trust. There's a lot of other things that may have happened as a result of whatever it is they did. But their motivation originally was not likely about targeting you. So get that out of your mind and help them to understand if this was happening in the reverse and you're the one who did the thing that caused mistrust. Well, likewise, you probably didn't mean it as personally as they may have taken it. We've got to allow within this emotional tone, the starting point, we've got to allow for the coming together, right? We're working towards some unity. But keep in mind, we've all been conditioned, especially in the workplace, especially if you have any turf war stuff going on or any silos, we've been conditioned inadvertently to think of this as a win-loss. I win, you lose. I give in, that is like giving you a win. We got to get away from that mindset if we're ever going to come back together to a place where we can collaborate and serve the common cause that we're here to do in our work. So, somewhere within all of this, we've got to acknowledge and show others that the aim isn't to be entrenched in our opposite, opposing kinds of positions, but to be thinking instead about where we have this crossover and need this unity. Now, within all of this, here's why it's difficult. Not only was there something offensive that happened, but there was also the fact that we all have different experiences. We see the world in different ways. We're operating within a situation where, the truth is we have different personalities. We have different personality styles. We come at each other in different ways. And that's just a fact. There's not a thing we're going to do to change that fact because we're hardwired and we have life experiences. And so, where I see blue sky, you might see dark clouds just as a starting point. Even if we've never known each other, never had any interactions, we're looking through different lenses. We're interpreting things in different ways. One thing that I do with a lot of teams that's really effective in addressing some of this is to operate through coming back together. So, how do we do that? Well, we use assessment tools, simple, neutral assessment tools that give us a common language and a way of looking at each other a little bit more objectively. Things like the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument, TKI, or the Myers-Briggs type indicator, MBTI. Maybe you're more familiar with DISC. These are all great tools that give you a fresh start. I also use the 12 dimensions of trust that's talked about in a different Bright Talk, or you can also attend that People First Leadership Academy workshop that I mentioned called Trust is a Two-Way Street. You can go over and if you attend that program, you can get the ebook that walks through all 12 dimensions of trust. But somewhere, somehow, whether it's individually or whether you're doing some team effectiveness work and you bring in someone like me to help you with that, think about just naturally stepping back to a starting point about the individuals and their own styles before you ever even try to diagnose and dive into this messy stuff that caused the mistrust in the first place. Okay, whatever else you do, avoidance is only going to make this problem worse. I have never, ever, not once, seen a situation where there was mistrust get better by allowing that mistrust and those tensions to linger unchecked. It never works that way. It never fades away unless the people change and there's, a lot of new people in the group. If it's the same players and the problem remains unaddressed, it only ever magnifies. People, they pick teams, they choose sides, and that divide between them gets bigger, often more hostile. And even though people can't remember exactly why there's a divide, once they've picked their side and that divide has gone unaddressed, it's very, very real. It's visceral, and people are very unlikely to move away from it. All right, so what else can you do? Well, I've got a few other ideas for you here on screen, and I know, in this big, big topic, I'm coming at it from a lot of different angles. I'm hitting you with a ton of stuff all at once. That's because it's a complex, big topic, and there's usually lots and lots of baggage here within this topic. Lots of subsets of things we could be talking about. Couple of other reminders as we're talking about, though, even this very first piece, a big one, the emotional tone. We've got to get to a place where people are seeing each other as people. Human to human connections are important if trust is ever going to have a chance to take hold. We think instead, sadly, about departments. We think about tasks and handoffs. We think about the natural tensions that those silos can cause because sometimes the fact that we are in two different departments means that we're competing for resources. It may mean that we are going to clash because we're supposed to. I'm doing one thing, you're doing another thing. There's a natural tension in the work itself. That's a system of checks and balances oftentimes. For example, you've got safety people within your organization, whether it's security or whether it's safety. Sometimes in organizations, these are folks who have policies and they demand compliance that slows down the work that others do on purpose, right? With very good reason. But if people don't understand, and worse, if they don't know the individuals taxed with giving you those safety and security measures, then they might just assume it's people who are doing things for all the wrong reasons, and mistrust, founded in nothing more than not knowing, can cause bigger problems that last longer. So as we're thinking about the emotional tone, we're not going to accentuate the negative because I said so, because the policy is there, because you'll be in trouble, I'll write you up. Instead, we're going to be doing more of the human to human connecting, and we're going to accentuate the positive. My job is to help you do your job in a way that's safe, that preserves life and limb. Now, we've got to look at the positives and that natural crossover that we have. And within all of that, even as we're resetting the emotional tone, we're not going to minimize feelings or pretend that they don't matter or that they don't exist. Instead, I can understand why you might feel that way goes a long way. Human to human means that there are feelings involved, that we have to talk about those messy feelings, that we have to acknowledge that someone somewhere along the way may have been hurt or may have misunderstood and felt betrayed by something that we did. It's not about our feelings alone. It's about recognizing that others have feelings and that those other feelings are every bit as valid as our own feelings are. Now, within all of what I've just described, obviously there's more than one party. It's how I am coming at this. It's how you're coming at this. So let me give you some tips on sharing that responsibility in a way that isn't defensive or one-sided, in a way that's going to invite others in and make them partners in getting back to that place where there can be a higher level of trust. First and foremost, and this is probably going to surprise you, but I really truly believe that blame and shame are absolutely useless. That's our first human instinct, to blame someone else or to wallow in some sort of shame that we might feel. Whether it's directed inward or outward, doesn't matter. They're both useless. They don't get you anywhere. You're going to have those natural inclinations, and the sooner, faster you can move through them and realize they don't get you anywhere else, the better. You can become embittered if you stay in this moment of constantly blaming others, even if it's true that somebody else's choice caused the problem. Even if that's true, that finger pointing still keeps you only here or somewhere in the past. It doesn't get you anywhere moving forward. Acknowledging it in a way that is productive sounds more like, this happened. Now, how can we move past it and through it so we make sure that we don't allow that to happen again in the future? It's more of a we, because the truth is, that person alone may not be solely responsible. Oftentimes, not always, but often, there is something that could have been said sooner. There is something that could have been flagged or taught or discussed, something that would have helped that person avoid that mistake that caused these problems that led to mistrust that divided the team. So let's just sort of assume that there was good intent. Let's assume that there was something that person didn't know, didn't realize, didn't understand. And who cares if they coulda, shoulda? That's all backwards facing. We're going to look forward. Focus on fixing it, focus on getting to a new place, use the information about how it happened only to remedy the situation, learn and grow and give grace going forward. You would want no less if the mistake had been yours. So, we're going to look at the forward and we're going to be committed to the continued improvement, including continued improvement in the relationship, continued improvement in the culture. What that looks like is, well, we've got to be, all of us, vulnerable enough to ask for help when we need it, to admit when we don't know something or aren't entirely sure, to be able to collaborate so that we, all of us together, get better and avoid mistakes in the future. That kind of vulnerable approach gives you a whole new level of ability to trust one another and to be trusted. Only when you have that kind of trust can you feel really secure that the team is going to operate consistently at its very best. Let me show you why this is so hard, though. I'm going to show you just a little box model that defines something called a fundamental attribution error. This is one of many different types of unconscious bias that can also get in our way of trusting others. I'm not going to dwell there because there are other presentations that we've provided that can help you dive deeper into unconscious bias. But this one I want to pull out because until this gets addressed, it is really hard to do any of what I'm describing. What I'm describing may sound like some sort of Pollyanna, unrealistic pie in the sky utopia. It's not. If you can get to an understanding and an awareness of this one thing first. The fundamental attribution error works like this. When we are looking at ourselves or people that are very, very, very close to us, more often our personal relationships than our workplace ones. When we're looking at ourselves, we attribute the positive outcomes in our life to all the wonderful things that we've done and to our outstanding interpersonal characteristics, our integrity, our honesty, our hard work, our ethics. When it's positive and we've achieved something, we give ourself the credit. But we don't really do the same thing for others. We're more inclined, and this is all humans, this is not to blame or shame anybody. This is just how it works. When somebody else achieves something that's positive, instead of crediting that person, their integrity, their ethics, their hard work, their characteristics, we're much more likely to go first to something outside of that person. That lucky so-and-so, they were in the right place at the right time. Or we talk about politics. It's not what you know, it's who you know. We credit something other than the individual when they achieve something positive. But when it's ourself, we credit what we've done. And just the opposite is true when it's something negative. When something bad happens to us, we didn't get the promotion, we made a mistake, we say that's because of something external. We don't take the blame. We externalize the blame. We say we had bad luck. We were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Some circumstances outside our control are what caused this bad thing to happen. But if it's somebody else and something bad happens to them, we don't extend them that same type of grace. Nope. Instead, here's where we talk about that individual and their innate characteristics. We say that they don't have integrity, that they caused the problem because of their own personality or their innate characteristics. We flip it around in a way that really isn't fair to that individual. And it's not fair to us either to exempt ourselves from the same sort of introspection that we'd be giving to others when something negative happens. Let me give you a classic example of how this fundamental attribution error works. Let's say that you are in heavy traffic, you're running late, and that traffic is thick and you're getting impatient and somebody cuts you off. That person who cuts you off, your first thought is probably a string of 4-letter expletives, and you're blaming that person. You're calling that person names. But if you're the one who cut somebody off in traffic, you're probably really horrified at it in that moment, but you're saying, I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I had to get to this exit. The signs, it wasn't marked clearly. It was that guy back there. He didn't allow me in when I should have been able to get in. If we could give other people the same kind of grace that we give ourselves, and if we could recognize in other people the positives that come out of their personality and innate characteristics, well, if we could do all of that, we'd be able to share responsibility and avoid blame and shame and be able to get to this forward focus a whole lot faster. All right. Now, for those of you who are attending live, let me remind you to post your questions. I've taken a couple of them as they came in sequence already, and I'll try to keep doing that. But I'll also take any that are remaining at the end. So we're back to how do we then overcome the situations where we didn't do all of that in the first place? How do we repair and restore trust once it's been broken? One of the ways you do that is by dealing with it. When there's a lack of trust, conflict is seldom productive. It's either avoided entirely, that's called artificial harmony, or it becomes personal attacks because we don't trust that person. So, and we're blaming their innate characteristics. And so we end up personally being attacked or doing the attacking. We want to get to a place where the conflict is more productive because conflict really is necessary in any workplace, in any team. If the best decisions and the strongest problem solving are to happen, you can't do it without productive kinds of conflict. So, this is sort of one of those counterintuitive things. To build trust, you've got to be able to demonstrate productive conflict. To have productive conflict, you've got to be able to have strong bonds of trust so that people can enter in and be a little bit vulnerable, offer alternative ideas and perspectives, and be able to feel that they've been understood when they entered into the conflict without it irreparably damaging the relationship. If you are at a place where you need to restore trust, you'll have to have conflict, but you'll have to demonstrate that it's not a personal attack. It is not a negative conflict. It's an offering of other perspectives in a way that's vulnerable, in a way that acknowledges the other person, in a way that isn't going to escalate into something destructive, where you're not going to be focusing on the uncomfortable, but you're going to make others comfortable and allow them to express their opinions and viewpoints too. Now, I know for some of you, what I am describing seems absolutely counterintuitive beyond what you could imagine, because you may be thinking conflict, danger, warning signs, flashing lights, because you are sort of conditioned to think that conflict is always bad. And it's not at all. So, conflict, the best ways that it's used are when you have the trust and you're thinking of conflict, you're playing devil's advocate, you're asking the questions, you're stirring the pot, not in ways that poke people and cause them to be defensive, but in ways that surface concerns that people know you're looking out for their best interest. You're flagging the problem before it becomes a problem because you're offering these diverse points of view gently, thoughtfully, with a statement of intent to let them know why you're asking the questions that you're asking. Hey, just have a couple of questions. I want to make sure we don't find ourselves wishing we'd thought about this when it's too late. But, what are your thoughts about? It's neutral, it's gentle, it's not personal, and it gives everybody a better understanding of what's going on and shows them that you're thinking about their best interest as well as your own. You're probably more thinking about conflict on the right-hand side, the danger zone red, because that's what happens when conflict is mishandled, when conflict is not coming from a place of trustworthy behaviors, or when the feelings are so absolutely entrenched in negative thinking and mistrust that it always goes to the destructive, to the red side. So use conflict to build trust gently, develop that vulnerability and trusting kinds of behavior so that your conflict can be more productive. It's a bit circular, but it goes both ways. Now, everything we've been talking about, I've already teed this up a couple of different ways. It's all about finding common ground. Finding common ground is the starting point for moving past hurt feelings and any kind of vague sense of mistrust, any of those unconscious biases that I briefly mentioned. Finding common ground means that you don't think about the style of the individual. You don't think about the way that they're saying something or doing something. Instead, you think about the substance, the common ground, the the gems within what they're saying, despite their style. And you learn about different personalities and preferences and how people conduct themselves so that you can have more understanding. And you get to a place where you're both focusing on your shared and your mutual goals. That does not mean that you somehow make your own individual goals less than or subservient to. It means that you have a respect for the individual goals that each party has, and you have a heightened attention on your shared goals. It's not either or, it is both. You see each other as people who could be thought partners. Yes, we think differently, and that's a good thing. Because if we think differently, that means I have an opportunity to learn from you. I have an opportunity to be able to value and see things that you do differently. I have an opportunity to be challenged by you and not be in an echo chamber. And I have a sincere desire within this common ground to connect human to human. There's more than meets the eye. What meets the eye is that person I don't trust. What meets the eye is this person who's doing something that's personal and directed against me and that's destructive. And I'm in that place where I'm blaming and shaming and finger pointing and having negative memories, as opposed to realizing that there could be more to it if I allow there to be. All of this, all of this that I'm describing, obviously it requires putting a value on diversity of thought. And that's hard to do. It doesn't come naturally. Right? We all, one of those unconscious biases that we all have is a confirmation bias. What a confirmation bias means is I already have an idea about a topic, a person, a plan, whatever it might be. I've already got some idea. And so I go out and I seek the information and the people and the sources that support what I already believe. And I reject the ones that don't agree with my preconceived notions. You're human. You can't help but have a confirmation bias. We have to deliberately work to get past it. And one of the ways that you deliberately get past it and recognize it within yourself is that you value a diversity of thought. You set for yourself some parameters like, I won't make a decision on this until I feel like I have gotten the opposite opinion in equal measure to the opinion I'm already leaning toward. I won't make a decision until I talk to people who I know are going to think about this differently than I do. And I'll give them equal time and I'll give them equal consideration. It's hard, but I'll do it so that I can make a truly informed decision and so that I won't be caught unawares. And so I won't look like I was hard headed and stubborn and missed what I should have known sooner. So you value that diversity of thought. You work against your own natural tendencies toward unconscious bias, like the confirmation bias. You get out of your own echo chamber. You refuse to allow groupthink. That's where a group very readily and easily goes along with each other because of false harmony. And you'll stir up productive conflict so that you can avoid having any of those kinds of problems. You'll use techniques like if it's a group situation, you'll do a round robin. Let me hear from each individual. Everybody should have a question or a thought. Let's play devil's advocate and make sure we stir up whatever's going on here. What I'm describing to you creates conflict, yes, productive conflict. And it builds trust because one of the things that's absolutely essential for rebuilding trust is this openness, this vulnerability that I've mentioned. You know, the law of reciprocity is a really, really big piece of trust. I trust people who trust me. I'm more likely to listen to people who listen to me. I want to be open to others' ideas when they've been open to my ideas. So, to rebuild trust, we can't sit around and wait for someone to do things that are trustworthy. We have to give them opportunities to be trustworthy, and we have to do things that cause them to trust us. If we're looking to restore trust that we've broken, we have to take some steps here that show the opposite of whatever it was that caused them to mistrust us in the first place. We have to compensate going forward, and we have to do it more than once. Nobody treats a violation of trust as an isolated incident. They don't say, you were untrustworthy in that moment. They say, I don't trust you. So we have to keep that in mind and not let it be something that we become overly defensive about. We just have to fix it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about just one more thing here, and that is relational agility. Relational agility, what that means, it's a view of organizational change, so change within a team or an organization that places our relationship with ourselves, with each other, with our environment, the culture, at the heart of our abilities to successfully deliver change. Now, I'm saying change because this is when it most often comes up, but certainly relational agility, well, that's in the here and now and every moment too, because let's face it, in the volatile world that we live in, where we're all dealing with a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity, everything feels threatening and feels like there's going to be a change. That's what we're constantly on alert for. Okay, so relational agility, it means that you are considering for yourself, what do you need to be agile and nimble and able to do within that moment of change? It means that you're willing to learn and to grow. It means that you take feedback. It means that you remain positive, that you're resilient when you do get that feedback or have a disappointment. You look for ways to bounce back. You look for ways to correct mistakes that you've made, even those big mistakes that led to places where people felt they had a cause to mistrust you. So, as an individual for yourself, you're constantly looking and demonstrating to others this openness, this humility, and this vulnerability. And when that happens, it sort of opens up others. The law of reciprocity opens up others to meet you more toward the middle. But what you're doing with others, right, what you're thinking about and understanding about others is that they are operating in their own space. They're operating in that shared space with you, with the team, with the organization, with the politics, with the customers, right? They have lots of other threat responses that they're thinking about too. And you're looking to sort of understand that and meet them just as you would like them to understand that and give you grace for the places where they'd meet you. But don't forget, there's also this whole other stuff out there, this system, the culture, the politics I mentioned because of power dynamics, the competitive threats that are out there, just the uncertainty in the world at large, the economy. So the systems, you've got to be able to operate with those in mind too. If you're going to be able to build this great place in the middle where everything can come together, where people are seeing that you've got the awareness, the soft skills, the emotional intelligence, the team effectiveness that comes out of all that awareness. You've got a strong sense of self, a strong commitment to the team, and a strong sense of clarity and priorities within those systems. And when you demonstrate all of that, that awareness, that understanding, that grace, that nimble ability to think about others and put yourself in their shoes, to think about the systems and the impacts and the consequences, well, at that point, it's hard not to trust you. Everybody wants to be a part of something where it's cohesive and where all the pieces are aligned and where there's this kind of clarity that you're able to offer. So, relational agility affords you the opportunity to restore trust, to repair it, and to keep it intact once you've got it. If you're going to have this opportunity to create that kind of dialogue and that kind of understanding, you've heard me say it now a couple of times, it requires openness. You have to demonstrate all the time that you're putting humility, the humility to learn and grow, above your own ego, that you're genuinely interested in others. You care about their perspectives and their opinions and their needs. You ask great questions so that it demonstrates that understanding. And when you ask those questions out of genuine interest, you listen, not just for content, but for the feeling of what's being said. You listen with empathy. And your quest for learning is always bigger picture than this moment or this feeling or this conflict that could go negative. It's always bigger and it's future focused. What's new? What's next? What else? What do you need? How can I help? What are we going to be able to do together? And when you do that, what you ultimately will be doing is creating new experiences for people. Those new experiences will form new beliefs about you and about your trustworthiness. Those new experiences will give people an assurance that they can believe in you, that you're not going to be doing something contrary, something negative, something that hurts them. See, what we do instead is we start at the top of the pyramid. We expect people to instantly trust us again, or to instantly do something that would cause us to trust them again. We're looking for the results of trust. We're looking maybe one lower deeper. What are they doing so that I can trust them? But people can't change on a dime. They aren't going to choose different actions unless they have different beliefs. And they aren't going to have different beliefs until they have different experiences. So ultimately, to restore, repair, and reserve trust, keep it strong, you've got to be able to provide the experiences, not one, not two, but a continuum of experiences that form the beliefs, that cause the actions of extending trust, so you can get the results together as a team that you're looking to get. Okay, we covered a whole lot here. And I think that I've got all the questions answered that came in from the live viewers. But if you have questions, if you want to be in touch with me, remember in the attachments, I've given you information on how to do that. I hope that you'll take a look at People First Leadership Academy. That's peoplefirstpotential.com. The course catalog is down there for you in the attachments. And I hope that you'll come back for more of the presentations that are here on Bright Talk too. We cover at least one new topic every month, and we're always looking to provide opportunities for you to have ways to realize your full potential. That's what it's all about, everything that we do. Don't forget to leave a comment for me, a rating, and a comment so I know what you like or what you'd like to see done differently in the future. I'm Deb Calvert. This is the People First Potential channel on Bright Talk, and I so appreciate you joining us when you see a topic that's of interest.